Hi, this is Tim from UK Home Gym, your home for UK specific independent home gym tips and advice. And today I'm going to continue with a series which I started very recently, which is about running and lifting weights. So how can you balance these two things? And in the previous video, I covered the mistakes that long-term runners usually make when they start taking up lifting, when they start going to the gym. And today I want to take the opposite perspective, and I want to look at how the mistakes that long-term lifters make when they take up running. And I've seen this in countless situations both ways in my own life, in my own experience, and also a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people who I've seen in celebrities and whatever, when they pick up one of these sort of disciplines and they've been doing the other discipline a lot, it's always the same mistakes that they're making. So I just wanted to point out a few of these, just because in my own experience, I've made some of these mistakes myself. I've seen other people do it, and I think that these pointers will be very helpful for you. So I've got 4 points to make, four sort of mistakes to sort of avoid, basically. And a bonus fifth point will be how I think a home gym can actually help you resolve some of these mistakes. And, that makes sense because this is allegedly a home gym focused channel. So the first problem, and I'd say probably the biggest one, and if you're only going to take one thing away from this video, it would be this. It's that I think that a lot of people tend to go out too quickly, or they're doing too much, they're going too fast. They focus too much on speed, and I think that's a big mistake for particularly people who don't really have a lot of experience in running, who just suddenly take it up, and they're used to the sort of intensity that you feel, particularly in the gym when you're lifting heavy weights, and they're trying to replicate something that they know about in the gym, on the roads, or in the trails or whatever. I find that tends to be like a sort of focus for people. So what they'll do is how they'll start off, very typically, it's very typical, this is that they'll have done their gym stuff, and they'll say, right, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take up running, and I'm just going to run 5 minutes a day, or I'm going to run a kilometer a day, or I'm going to run a mile a day, or I'm going to do it every couple of days, or whatever. And they'll do it, and they'll feel really good about it, and they'll be like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I haven't done that before. I ran for 5 minutes without stopping, blah, blah, blah. That's great. I ran a kilometer, I ran a mile. And the next time they go out, they'll feel the need to do the same thing, but quicker. And I think that's a totally understandable human, reaction. And particularly if you're a lifter, and particularly if you're focused on, on strength, you've got this idea of a progression in your head, progressive overload. I must improve my strength by either adding more reps or increasing the difficulty by putting more weight on the bar. So how they translate that to running is, well, I've got to run that 1 kilometer faster next time I do it. Or, I've got this little circuit, it takes, a mile or something like that, and I want to do this circuit, but faster and faster and faster. Or maybe they do the opposite, and they don't do too much speed, but they do too much distance. So I think that's a trap, and you need to avoid it. Don't get stuck in this sort of speed trap where you're like, I need to go faster, I need to go faster, I need to go faster, because that's how you're going to end up getting injured. And then you won't be able to continue doing that running. So, particularly if you're just getting started, don't worry about speed. The consistency is much more important. And if anything, focus on the distance and slightly increase the distance if you want to increase something, but keep the speed down. And in fact, keep the same speed that you started off with, that's what you should be continuing with. You can't think of it in terms of putting weight on the bar. It doesn't work in the same way, because running, you'll find it much easier to get injured, unfortunately, with running, because people tend to overdo it and go beyond their limits, and they don't really realize. particularly if you enter a race or something like that, or you start doing park run and there are other people around you. You can't help feeling competitive and wanting to pass the person in front of you or something like that. You got to take it easy, feel your way into it, and the way that you can do that is keep the speed down. If you want to increase anything, increase the distance, increase the time, or whatever, but don't try and make every session more intense than the last one. The second point I want to talk about involves falling into the same kind of trap as people who I mentioned in the running video, in the previous video, and that is that people tend to not really know where to put their sessions. So, for instance, if you're a regular gym goer, you might think, okay, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do all of my gym work, and then at the end of my session, my lifting session, I'm going to go and run a kilometer. Absolutely fine, if you sort of keep the intensity down. But I think once you start running more and more and having if you're doing not just a kilometer, you're not just doing a slow, 20 minutes on the treadmill or something like that. If you're out actually going to go and do something quite serious, you're going to go and, push yourself a little bit in terms of distance or push yourself a little bit in terms of intensity, you need to keep that well away from your gym session, because otherwise it will end up interfering, A, with the gym session, and B, with the running session, because you're going to have so much fatigue from running around, after your session, plus the gym, that it will take you a long time to recover from both the gym work and the running session. So you don't want to do that. You want to try and keep them completely separate, and make sure that you have time to recover from both of these things. So if you do want to put a workout and a gym workout and a running session into the same day, then separate them by a good few hours. Make sure that they're a good distance away from each other, so that you've given yourself a chance to have a break. Because otherwise, you're exhausted from your gym session, and then you are going to go and exhaust yourself on the run, and it's a shortcut to injury and burnout, and you don't really want to push yourself in that particular way. If you were able to say, okay, well, I'm only ever going to do a 5-minute jog after my gym workout, fair enough, that's okay. But I think most people sort of get sucked into running, and you start off with not doing very much, and you end up doing more and more and more. And I think that you should have those things very separate. The third point I want to talk about is that people sort of get into running, particularly lifters, they get into running with really, really unclear or very, very woolly goals about what they actually want to do, and what benefits that they're trying to seek. So are you getting into running because you want to run a certain race, you want to run a certain distance? Are you doing it because you think that you need more cardiovascular health? You really need to think about these things before you start running, because otherwise you'll get sucked into, doing, as I said, you're doing some sort of loop that takes you, you're running around the block, or you're running up the road and back again, or something like that. And you start setting yourself these targets of, I've got to do it quicker, I've got to do it quicker. Well, yesterday I did it in 6 minutes. Today I'm going to do it in 5 minutes 59 or something like that, And next time you do it, I'm going to do it in 5:30. And before you know it, you're setting yourself goals that you don't really need to have these goals. They don't do you any favors, and they're going to interfere with your running, because, as I said, the intensity, you keep cranking it up, this intensity. Whereas you initially were going for a sort of leisurely run, now you're going for this sort of almost like an all-out sprint, and it's going to interfere with your lifting, because you're going to damage your recovery time, and it's not going to be good in the long run. If you have a more defined goal, with both your lifting and your running, then I think that that's going to help you a lot more. So if your goal was, okay, I want to run a 10K. I've never done a 10K. There's loads going on in my area, whatever. I'd like to do that, and I just want to complete it. Brilliant. That's a goal, and you can easily fit that into a running schedule, a workout schedule, without sort of jeopardizing your lifting and compromising that. Um, and if you're starting from a base of not really having any experience of running, I think that it's very possible to do it. But that's the goal. The goal is completing it, not doing it in some sort of record time. Um, you know, maybe your goal is more sophisticated. Maybe your goal is, I want to do my local park run, and I want to finish in the top 50 or something like that. Well, then that's more speed based, but it's a shorter distance. Fine. Anyway, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, make sure that it's very clearly defined before you start running, so that you can actually program your running as well as you program your gym sessions, because you wouldn't put no real thought into how you lift weights. In fact, you probably scorn at people who go into the gym and just start noodling around on stuff. So don't be the kind of person that would then go and noodle around on in the roads with your running. And the final point I want to talk about is, I think a lot of lifters use the sort of same principles that they do in lifting when they come to running. I think you need to remember that they are very, very different modalities. I think I've touched on this point maybe in a few of my other points here, but I think that particularly in terms of intensity, running it's as I said, unless you're sprinting, running really isn't about high intensity and short bursts. It's about doing completely the opposite. Really just slowing it down and having this long, repetitive, steady state. This kind of running. That's what most of your running should be like, unless you're trying to get injured. Maybe if you're going to go in for a race. Then on race day, then you're going to pick up the pace. You're going to put your hardest effort in, but that's completely different from your training. Your training, particularly at the beginner level, your training should be really all about that kind of steady state, really slowing it down. And if you can do that, then you'll get the consistency, because you'll stay injury free, and you will be able to do it more and more, and you'll get better and better at running. And it's not that just you'll get better and better at running slowly, you'll build up your aerobic base and all of that good stuff. I mean, I can go into that in more detail in another video, but I think it might be a bit superfluous for this one. But I mean, basically, you want to steer clear of these sort of principles of lifting, because they don't apply at all. Let's cycle around and talk about how a home gym can help you avoid falling into some of these pitfalls. And I think that home gym is really perfect for anyone who wants to try and combine lifting weights and running. And the main reason for this is because you have, with a home gym, you have no opening times to worry about. You have no closing times to worry about. You're not forced into working out at any particular time, lifting weights at any particular time. And when you run, particularly if you run outside, you have all the freedom, of all the time in the world. You can go in the morning if you want, you can go in the evening if you want. Why not have that flexibility as well with your lifting program, with your lifting schedule? Go and lift whenever you want. Organize your day however you like it. If you want to have a big break between your lifting session and your running session, you can have it, because you can lift at any time, you can run at any time, and within reason, of course. Because I don't think that you should compromise on your sleep or whatever. But that said, I do think that flexibility is really important if you're in any way trying to combine these two disciplines. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about for today's video. There is going to be a part 3 of this, which is how a hybrid athlete, or how someone who wants to try and give equal weight to their lifting and their running, how they can manage to balance both of those disciplines, and how a home gym is really the key to doing that. So please stay tuned if you would like to see that. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please leave any questions below. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any on this subject. If you have any experience with this, I'd like to hear how you get along with it. Please do check out our website. That's ukhomegym.com. And I'll see you next time on UK Home Gym.